A firm, flyby tower is ready.
Downward flyby 450.
Altitude. Pull up. Pull up.
Woo! That's our Top Gun moment for sure, I think.
It's an experience, definitely, that breaks you down, but you all get built back up together, and it's a beautiful thing to watch.
We're taking experienced aviators and engineers and teaching them how to fly anything.
Whether we put it on a spacecraft or an aircraft is kind of immaterial. The science behind it is the same.
I'm here in the Mojave Desert at Edwards Air Force Base to find out what it takes to become one of the world's most skilled pilots. This is where aviation history was rewritten, where the sound barrier was first shattered, where the space shuttle first flew, and where the limits of what's possible continue to be pushed to new heights. I'll be bringing you along to see how test pilots are trained, what makes this school so prestigious, and at the end of it all, I'll be gearing up for a backseat ride in an F-16 Viper to experience real test pilot maneuvers. So strap in and get ready, because this is an inside look at the Air Force's elite test pilot school.
What it takes to get into the test pilot school, the bar is very, very high.
The hardest part about test pilot school is doing all the things at once.
We are getting through a 2-year master's and a 1-year flying program in 12 months.
They are, without question, the best of the best. In the military, we're constantly in this cat and mouse game with potential adversaries. We're always pushing the boundary of technology. How can we make sure that they're effective, that they're safe, they're trustworthy, that they're ethical, and also capable? The test pilot school teaches people how to test new things so that the warfighter doesn't have to. When they climb in the aircraft, they know everything from the life support system to the weapons the aircraft itself will work.
This is the place, no kidding, where we're all here to make sure that the only one surprised when it's time to fight is the adversary.
We're not teaching people how to fly for the first time. We're taking experienced aviators and engineers and teaching them how to fly anything.
What a view.
When you walk through the halls of Air Force Test Pilot School, it really does feel like you're walking in the footsteps of aviation legends. Names like Chuck Yeager, who became the first pilot to break the sound barrier in level flight. Neil Armstrong, the first man on the moon, flew over 200 aircraft during his time here at Edwards, including the hypersonic, rocket-powered X-15 that still to this day is one of my favorites. Between 1962 and 1975, the Test Pilot School expanded its role to include astronaut training for its test pilots. 37 Test Pilot School graduates were selected from the different services for the U.S. space program, and 26 earned their astronaut wings, flying for programs like the X-15, Gemini, Apollo, and Space Shuttle. And speaking of the Space Shuttle, Edwards was the perfect place to conduct those initial flights. Rogers Dry Lake Bed, which is less than a mile from where we are right now at the heart of Edwards Air Force Base, features the world's longest runway, which comes in at a staggering 12,000 meters, or roughly 40,000 feet. And actually, the very first space shuttle mission, STS-1, landed back here at Edwards Air Force Base on runway 17 after completing 54 orbits around Earth.
So this is a Commandant Row. It shows the pictures of all the commandants here at the Test Pilot School, and you're looking at, a wall of luminaries. The people who stand out the most here are Chuck Yeager. So back when he was Colonel Chuck Yeager, he did so much to advance the space education here at the school, ultimately flying the NF-104, as you might have seen in the movie The Right Stuff. And another obviously well-known luminary and leader in the space and aviation community is Buzz Aldrin. So you can see here he was a commandant of the school after he got back from the moon landing. And again, just to be in the presence and the company of these men and women who have led the school is really an honor. So each year we have hundreds of applicants from across all the major weapon systems in the Air Force who apply. And of those, we ultimately end up picking about 24. And they're split between two different classes. One class that'll start every January and another class that'll start every July. The class here lasts 12 months, and we can break that into three main phases. The first is the performance phase. During that phase, the students are learning fundamentals of test in addition to the most basic kind of testing, which is how fast, how far, how high, how many Gs can this aircraft perform or pull. The second phase is focused on the flying qualities and handling qualities of an aircraft. We're teaching our students how to look at an aircraft to size it up and understand how it's going to fly in terms of its qualities. The last phase that we focus on is the mission systems, so all the elements of the aircraft that actually allow it to perform its function, whether it's the radar, the electronic warfare suite, weapons delivery, communications and navigation, and so on. The hands-on, the academics, the real-world test project. The hardest part about test pilot school is doing all the things at once.
My background is in aerospace engineering, and so I was not shocked about the academic rigor. I was shocked about how compressed this timeline is. We are getting through a 2-year master's and a 1-year flying program in 12 months. Days usually start around 5 a.m. and go well beyond the 12-hour mark. It's an experience, definitely, that breaks you down, but you all get built back up together, and it's a beautiful thing to watch.
And I think it's the sum total of managing all of that and knowing what to prioritize at this moment that really constitutes the major challenge of the school. Individual students will get to fly something about 20 to 25 different aircraft.
Aircraft that are being tested right now that we probably won't hear about for years, and if you can imagine, are pretty crazy.
That includes everything from fighter aircraft like the F-16 to prop aircraft, the C-12,
The Osprey, the R-44, and the Black Hawk.
T-38, P-51 Mustang to the B-25.
And it's really to beat into us that we need to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations.
Winds level 20 inches, bring the nose up here, perfect.
So if we are the first to fly in a novel weapon system, that we can do so safely, securely, and effectively every time.
What's so fascinating about test pilots is that they're behind the controls of some of the latest and greatest technology in military aviation. But there is one aircraft here that has been making headlines worldwide, an experimental platform designed to test artificial intelligence in dogfighting. It's a project that's been pretty secretive around here, but one that we were given special permission to show you. So get ready for the X-62 VISTA.
So Sam, what your viewers are looking at here in the background is the X-62 VISTA. This is an incredible, one-of-a-kind autonomy fighter test bed. It began life as an F-16 specifically for testing thrust vectoring on the F-22 and actually did the initial test that ultimately got to almost 180 degrees of alpha, which is an incredible accomplishment. Yeah. We ultimately upgraded it to install AI computers so that we could determine how effective AI can be in combat.
And I know everyone's wondering, but can you answer who won that dogfight?
While I can't tell you whether or not it won in the air, what I can say is that it was effective enough that we're continuing to do research and advance new lines of research for combat autonomy.
So I see the big dorsal fin pretty much running the entire length of the fuselage. Is that the only structural modification on VISTA?
So VISTA actually began life as the NF-16, and it actually came off the line with several modifications. All the computers that run the autonomy live in that dorsal fin. And in addition, as you can see, the paint scheme is a little bit different than a usual F-16. Yeah. One of the things that stands out is the orange here, which is an homage to test. So early testers would wear orange flight suits in order to be safely recovered if they had to eject out of aircraft. And really since that time, we've used orange as the test color. You can see it at TPS on our patches.
So how are the AI models actually trained? Like, how does this aircraft learn to dogfight autonomously?
There are these models that engineers and scientists, part of DARPA and other research labs, have put together. And they've created an environment where you can simulate dogfighting 1v1, 2v2, many v many, and you can run it much, much faster than real time. And those models are not perfect. There are things that they're not going to capture about winds, about altitude, about the aircraft itself.
So as the expert, do you see a world in the near future where AI replaces pilots, autonomy takes over? What's your take?
Well, the purpose of this test is really to identify how useful combat AI can be. We know from our day-to-day life, right, that there are areas where AI is going to perform better than humans and other areas where it's not going to perform nearly as well. We're going to keep pushing the technology to find out just how far we can take it. My suspicion is that the real value will demonstrate itself when humans and AI are both doing the things that they're best at in combination with each other.
Now, even though this is test pilot school, that doesn't mean everything is about flying. It's about pushing the limits of aviation and expanding into other domains as well. Here, students aren't just pilots, they're engineers, they're analysts, they're innovators. And part of the curriculum includes taking lessons in space, where students get to fly actual satellites. And all of that happens right here at the Space Operations Control Room.
It's important for us to understand how our satellites operate if we're going to be able to defend them against adversary threats. To get after that multi-domain testing, we want to have the space folks working with the flight folks the same way that the satellites are supporting the airplanes in a warfight. So Sam, we've got a unique opportunity for you here today to operate a satellite that is actually on orbit. It's the XVI satellite, which is about twice the size of this satellite. So just think this and then attach. Put some solar arrays sticking out of it and a 2-meter antenna sticking out. You're going to be changing the orientation of that satellite. You're going to be slewing it.
And slewing means going from one position
to another.
To another, okay.
Now, honestly, I was pretty surprised to hear that the Space Force is a part of test pilot school. But when you think about it, it makes perfect sense. Space is a warfighting domain just like the air. That's why the year-long space test course blends fundamentals like leadership and problem solving with specialized training in orbital mechanics, astrodynamics, and satellite systems. And just like the pilots in the sky, Guardians are learning how to test, innovate, and push the boundaries of what's possible.
Future conflicts aren't going to be in just one domain, right? We're going to have troops fighting on the ground, we're going to have planes in the air, we're going to have ships at sea, and we're going to have satellites in orbit supporting all of them. Whether we put it on a spacecraft or an aircraft is kind of immaterial. The science behind it is the same, so we teach the space and the flight students that stuff together. All right, and real-time commands went up. We're now at 182, and we can see that green line jumped again, and that will continue ticking on. So you've basically told the satellite to do a pirouette now.
Now, the biggest takeaway for me is that you can be a part of something as legendary as test pilot school while serving in the Space Force. As a Guardian, your mission is to secure our nation's interests in, from, and to space. And if that sounds like something you might be interested in, you can head to spaceforce.com to start your journey today.
My absolute favorite part of this job is working with the instructors at the test pilot school who are, without question, the best of the best. They are, without a doubt, extraordinary. And the amount of energy they pour into the students every day, the amount of knowledge they bring to the table is incredible to behold.
All right, good. So Timac, I'm showing right up against about 26 on the hour. We're going to work all the times, real time as we go. We got all the folks here, the no specific risk level stuff. Where I'm is good for me. You all good?
Yes.
All right. You are what you are. Security, we do have some classification requirements.
So today we're going to introduce Sam to kind of what it's like to be a test pilot at Edwards. We're going to look at departing aircraft. We're going to look at going supersonic, flying low level to look at handling qualities. So we're going to do a bunch of stuff today to really kind of show Sam the ropes at Edwards.
All right, fabulous. All right, Chief, ready for sec check? Yes, sir. Yeah, 6 feet.
Wait, I'm going to hold the nose up. And then as we come over the top, the airplane's going to kind of do one of these things. We'll exceed the departure angle attack, and the airplane will likely settle into what's called a deep stall.
Change the stand. Good. Stand by. Green lights. Waiting on the main gen.
We will, however, hopefully get a chance to pull some G's and get you a feel for what that's like. You're going to find that to be quite the adventure.
It's good. HUD on. You should get the HUD symbology in your right MFD at some point. All right, Chief, good to pull the EP. Tower number 1, Double 17 flight, ready for takeoff, 2 tree left. Check it at 90%. Make sure engine looking healthy. Super healthy. Brakes and max.
Let's go.
Let's go. Woo! Alright, nozzle strings is engaged.
That is a rocket ship.
It is. Rotate. Lift off. Gear. And out of AV.
Sometimes testing an airplane is taking it into that environment to make sure they can do the mission under those conditions.
All right, ready for some G?
Let's do it.
All right. And here we go. Woo! 5.5 Gs. Woo! Woohoo!
Wow.
Yeah, she climbs like a son of a bitch.
We are vertical right now. Oh my gosh. Woo!
So low levels have a fairly long military history. It turns out the closer you are to the ground, historically, the harder you are to shoot. That cannot always be true because you're also down there where the small arms are. But at the same time, it's important to look at testing an aircraft at low altitude because obviously when you're close to the ground going high speeds, a little mistake can make a big difference.
Double 17 flight of 2 F-16s entering point Alpha Sidewinder. Be 450 knots, 500 feet. I'm going to do a full 180 descent and see you at the end side. Boom. Woo!
Now, when you're flying that fast and that close to the ground, you're not like in a race car where your turn radius are very tight and you can't slow down to turn. So I need to look out miles ahead and decide how I'm going to enter that turn so I can use the G capability of the aircraft to make it through that turn.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. Nice and low, eh?
We are below the mountains.
A little fast right now, we're getting that under control. What we have to do is we have to lead this turn. So we come through here, get our pole on, and back into the valley. Right through here, you look, see the terrain is very busy. So I don't get myself a lot by trying to stay down low and inside the crevices.
Yeah.
Because there's another thing too, imagine if people are looking for me visually, you know, maybe anti-aircraft gunners.
Right.
Every time I do this, I'm really easy to see. Because there's a big old platform, right?
Sure.
Now, think about a ridge crossing is, if you do it wrong, you end up ballooning. So you end up going high and staying high. What you want to do is you want to stay low, and then we'll get some altitude here. Then I can roll and then cross.
Wow.
There you go, that's 6 Gs. And then back down low.
So a big part of being a test pilot, especially for fighter type aircraft, is understanding how to test an airplane for what we call departure characteristics. Now, a good way to think of this is imagine you're driving a car and you drive onto an icy patch and all of a sudden the back end swings out and now you're doing 360s down the road. That's a departure from controlled flight in a car. Now, in an airplane, when you depart from controlled flight, you do in 3 dimensions and you typically do at a much higher speed. You're higher, but you need a lot more altitude to recover as well. So we have to teach them not only how to fly and how to determine how an aircraft handles near those limits, but once they go beyond the limits to determine whether or not they can recover.
Spark up 17 flight with you passing 28,000. Request any spin area west preferred.
Code 17, that's approved NR 2515, altimeter 2994, stand by for the spin area.
2994. All right, so now we start having the fun. We're going to start off with an upright deep stall.
For our first departure, we're going to do is a very simple departure. We just go almost vertical.
It's going to be very close to the vertical climb we did on takeoff.
Okay.
We're just going to hold it until we run out of airspeed.
All right.
And we're going to depart above 35,000 feet. We're at 30,000 feet now, so I'll bring the power back to idle. It's easier on the engines if they aren't at high power for this. Yeah, to sit right about here.
And as we run out of airspeed, that vector gets like this, and now the airplane can't stay pointed into the wind, so we end up falling down like this, and the airplane will settle in what's called an upright deep stall.
Whoa.
Oh yeah.
We're floating.
Now trying to hold the nose up,
Wow.
and now we're falling.
Passing.
So there's not much to that, is there?
No.
Woo! Cool, so now we're in a deep stall.
We are stalled out in an F-16.
Yeah,
Wow.
so the pitch rock, I'm going to go to MPO, and I'm going to start right now with a pull, and then a push. And there's the recovery. Going to hold it down. Little rotation's pretty normal here. And there's 200 knots. Couple and recovered.
Copy, recovered.
Nice easy pull out here. All right, ADC light, that's pretty normal. Good it up. Nozzle's looking good. So that's pretty mellow, huh?
Yeah, here.
So the next departure we're going to do, it's like the upright departure, but now we're going to do it inverted. So instead of starting like this, we're going to start like this. So we start by going straight up, bring the airplane around here, and then now we're going to fall over backwards. And that's a really unusual way to depart because you run out of airspeed, and when you're out of airspeed, you're floating in the cockpit. It's like you're at 0G. But then as the airplane starts to fall, you build the G, and then now you're hanging in the straps, and the airplane will settle like that.
So I said horn again, that's telling us we're too slow, we should be recovering. But we're not doing that today. Now I'm just going to hold the pitch right here.
What a view.
And there's departure.
Warning, warning. Passing.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Whoa.
Here we go. Inverted deep stall. And I'm going to keep things straight here. And let's pitch rock out of it. So MPO, push, and pull.
Gee, oh my
There's
gosh.
recovery. Up the MPO switch. Couple % recovered.
And an important part of doing flight test is trying to figure out what kind of mistakes is a pilot likely to make, or what could they make, and what happens if they make that mistake. So our next departure, we're going to kind of stomp on the brakes on this one. We're going to pull the airplane up almost to the vertical, but what if I don't see that I'm not quite vertical and I try to pull it over? There's not enough airspeed to do that, so the airplane's going to go up like this and we'll fall backwards, and then it'll flop over, probably tumble just a little bit until it finally gets the nose pointed into the wind and recover.
All right, here we are getting up to the pitch attitude. Now I'm just going to hold this until I get the low speed horn, which I've turned off so we can talk. The horn will be now, so I'm just going to start pulling the stick back because I don't know that I'm not in the vertical. I'm going to try to recover now, and notice as the nose comes up, it just stops.
Yeah.
I'm pulling full left, and the nose isn't moving anymore. That means we're running out of airspeed, and right about here, we're starting to fall backwards. And as we gain speed flying backwards, we'll just start to flop forward a little bit. And there she goes. And we'll just kind of let her settle out. She'll probably self-recover. And there's the recovery. That's pretty crazy, isn't it?
I never thought I'd be tail sliding in an F-16.
So the last departure is a great demonstration of how the airplane can kinematically go very, very wrong. And the entire airplane, if it's rolling really rapidly, if we push on it with the tail, so let's say we're in a really rapid roll, we push on it with the tail, all those gyroscopic forces will cause it to yaw out. We're going to start by getting slow, but not too slow because we need to have enough airspeed to really make the airplane roll fast. So we're going to be rolling over and over and over again. We're still going up, so we're just rolling while we're going up. We run out of speed, we continue rolling, and then we'll finally be going fast enough that the airplane can get pointed back into the wind and we can recover.
So I'm just going to start pulling the stick back because I don't know that I'm not in the vertical. Yeah, it gets pretty floppy, doesn't it?
It's crazy.
And it's just going to keep going. I'm going to try to recover now. And notice as the nose comes up, it just stops.
Yeah.
I'm pulling full left, and the nose isn't moving anymore. That means we're running out of airspeed. And right about here, we're starting to fall backwards.
Oh my God.
And as we gain speed flying backwards, we'll just start to flop forward a little bit. And there she goes. And we'll just kind of let her settle out. She'll probably self-recover. And there's the recovery.
My head is spinning right now.
Yeah, it's pretty disorienting.
Yeah, before this video, people told me the departures and the spins is one of the most nauseating things you can do. So
you agree?
I do agree, but very cool to experience up here.
Yeah,
That's not gonna stop me. I just gotta give me a little straight and level for a bit, and then we're good.
I've had more people, get sick doing stuff like this, but nobody ever wished they hadn't done it.
That's very true.
Flyby tower, cover 17.
A firm, flyby tower is ready.
So the tower flyby is an interesting maneuver because you end up flying very low and very fast. But why would we fly 100 feet above the ground at up to almost supersonic speeds? Well, as it turns out, as you go faster and slower in an airplane, the instruments that show you your altitude, the altimeter, they change. Well, that needs to be corrected. So we need to learn what those errors are. So the best way to do it is we just put some engineers in a tower. They've got a device that exactly measures our height above the ground, and we go flying a given height, about 100 feet over the ground, at a range of airspeeds. They measure our height above the ground, and then we calculate the difference between that measured height and then the height my instruments show, and we use that to create corrections for the airplane.
Downward 7, flyby 450.
Cover 17 flight, report base tower flyby.
What's up?
Cover 18, wind at 200 at 5 clear tower flyby.
Good more G's. We line up on this. Or 7 final flyby 450. It's a little lower here. There's 450. We got 150 feet. Go late, starting. There's 100 feet.
The beautiful thing about flight tests for me is, first of all, every day is a little bit different because we're always testing new things, trying new things. It's kind of amazing.
And ready? Ready? Battle power.
That's our Top Gun moment for sure right there. Let's go.
Passport code 17, we're complete up in the area radar RTB for high key SFO.
Cover 17, roger on request.
What it takes to get into the test pilot school, the bar is very, very high. All of our students are very intelligent. In fact, it's difficult for them because they're all used to being very high in their classes all through their lives. They show up at test pilot school and they discover pretty quickly that half of them are below average. But they're all very intelligent, they work very hard, they all really want to do the job. It's like the perfect mix. I'm teaching a subject I love to people that would love to learn it. We're doing it in airplanes. I mean, it's perfect for me.
Well, that's a wrap here at Test Pilot School, and what a genuinely incredible experience. This isn't just about flying jets, it's about pushing the limits of what's possible, testing new technology, and shaping the future of aviation. After that flight, I can confidently say that being a test pilot isn't for everyone. It takes a tremendous amount of skill and a mindset built for constant challenges. But for those that make it through, they've certainly earned their place in history as a true aviation pioneer. Thanks so much for coming along for this ride. I'll catch you next time.